Hey guys, want to welcome you to our Growth Stack Drive weekday live. I've got an amazing guest today, Mr. Spencer Lodge, all the way from Dubai. Spencer has been named recently as one of the top 100 influential people in Dubai. I saw Spencer and got connected with him probably several months ago when he brought Grant over to do an event. Spence, thanks for being with us today, man.
Thank you very much for having me. It's nice to be here.
Hey, will you take just a minute and share with our audience a little about who you are and a little about what you've got going on right now?
Yeah, sure. I own a company, a group of companies called the Blue Sky Thinking Group. They are a wealth management, insurance broking, HR administration, tech, that kind of stuff. And then my passion is sales. And so I have something called the Make It Happen University, where I'm very passionate about sales to the point of being obsessive about it, if I'm really honest. I think of sales as particularly when I worked in financial services, as the fifth emergency service. You have obviously fire, ambulance, police, and then you have the Automobile Association, and then you have people like me that stop people making stupid decisions with their money and get into retirement and relying on 401ks and IRAs and all that kind of stuff to end up in poverty. In the Western world, whether that's the US or the UK, people habitually make bad decisions with their money. And so I, from a very passionate point of view, fight, argue, kick and scream to stop people doing silly things and help them do the right thing so they can protect their future.
So talk to me about, I always say that passion is rooted in purpose. So talk to me about where that passion comes from, Spencer. What was the trigger or the thing in your life that caused you to become passionate about helping other people establish and build wealth?
It's when I first joined the financial services industry back in 1993. I've just turned 50, so that was 27 years ago. Within 3 months of being in the industry, I saw a family where the husband had died and they had no life insurance. And the wife had 3 kids, 3 young kids, and she was at home obviously looking after the kids, and they had no money. And you know what they thought they had, they didn't have much of, and they had enough money maybe to last them for the year, and then nothing else. And that just could have been resolved with, $50 a month into some form of policy. And I'm like, people don't get this.
Right.
And then I started to, be really passionate about learning. And then I started to see statistics, and I would see people that were 65 years old and retired and broke. And when you realize how much money you need to live in retirement comfortably, I mean, if you want $50,000 a year in retirement, you need $1 million in the bank right now. And if you want $100,000 a year in retirement, you need $2 million in the bank right now, assuming you can get a 5% return on your money. So there's a huge amount of money required for people to make sure that they have a nice retirement. And that's 65. Life expectancy now is going up and up. People are going to live for 25, 30 years after retirement. And so for me, it was something that I became very passionate about. And then I built out systems and processes so that I could make sure that people didn't make bad decisions and they made good decisions. But also, when I was 19 years old, when I learned to sell, I was trained by Rank Xerox. And I remember I was 19 years old. I was in the city of London. I thought I was a bit of a cool dude. I was, one of these guys that was making decent money, working, 15, 16 hours a day. And it was Friday night. I walked into a bar and with 2 buddies of mine, and we've had a beer, cold beer, and there she was. She was just there, like just there. She's the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen in my life. I mean, she was stunning. And so my buddies are like, well, go and ask if you can buy her a drink. I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. She's going to say no. And they're like, well, you're lightweight. Anyway, so a couple of glasses of wine, and I still kept looking at her. No, you guys of my age will know exactly what I'm talking about. There's no Tinder in my era. And so 3 hours later, laced with enough wine inside me, I wandered over to introduce myself to her, and she just said to me, "What took you so long?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" She says, "You've been staring at me for the last 3 hours." Anyway, that was my in and my talking to her. And I'm sitting there chatting away to her. And what actually happened was she told me about her job, her career, what she was doing. She worked for an architecture firm. She was only a secretary, but she was really enthusiastic and passionate about it. And it was really nice to talk to her. And then she said, "What do you do?" I said, "I'm a salesman." And she just rolled her eyes at me and looked at me. She said, "Why did I have to meet a salesman?" I'm like, "What were you hoping for?" She said, "I don't know, investment banker, lawyer, somebody decent, not a salesman." And in that moment, I got this almighty great big chip landed on my shoulder. And in that moment, I just sat there and I said, "Do you understand something? Every business in this city has to make revenue for it to be a business that succeeds. And revenue coming into those businesses come from people that sell the services or the products those companies provide. If you have no salespeople, young lady, you have no job. So why don't you just have a little bit more respect of the guys that have to go out there, okay, and provide the revenue so that your business can run and people like you can be employed. And one other thing, and I want you to think long and hard about this. You get your nice, comfortable salary every month. Most salespeople start the beginning of the month on zero. They've still got they've still got their kids to pay for. They've still got to put a roof over their house. They've still got car payments. They start on zero. They deal with emotional highs and lows on an hourly, if not daily basis, where they're dealing with wins and losses all of the time. You've never had to face that. And so these people go through a really, really tough journey so that they can create success with exactly the same responsibilities, if not more. Please show them a bit of respect. And so coming from that moment onwards, it was just like, I need salespeople to be respected. I need this to be right. I need this to work. And I suppose that's really where my passion came from it. And then wanting to get salespeople to be effective. And that's really kind of like the place I drove it from.
So what happened after that comment back to her? Did you ever talk to her again?
We dated for 2 years. And yeah, that was it. She's Sarah Newton. Never forget her. 19 till I was 21. We dated for 2 years. And yeah, nice girl. And funnily enough, the really bizarre thing is her family won the national lottery about 10 years ago. And she inherited a fortune from the family lottery. But yeah. So
let me ask you a question, Spencer. When you talk about, I had Grant on yesterday and we talked about, we were talking yesterday about why people don't go into massive action, why people don't, one of the Grant's biggest things is we treat average like a terminal disease. Grant and I talked about it a little bit yesterday, and it's almost the same type of question I'm going to pose to you as I did to him yesterday. Why do people not prepare in their 20s and 30s for when they're 65? Like what's the disconnect, the biggest disconnect you see in people taking care of and setting themselves up?
The biggest disconnect is people don't see it as close. They see it as far away, and they don't really understand the value of compounding interest. And young people don't think about the future because they live in the now. And so their focus is on an ego-based lifestyle. It's like they're focused on, they want the nice car, they want the nice clothes, they want, they want all of these kind of things, which essentially cost money. They want to go to the club, they want to spray bottles of champagne or whatever it is they want to do. And so they're not thinking about what will happen in the future. It's the kind of thing people think about when they're 40. However, there isn't a 20-year-old that I have ever met in my life that wouldn't have liked to retire at 40.
Right. So you made the transition, or not really the transition, but you added to what you were already doing by starting Make It Happen, like by having a passion to help sales guys. Like what caused that trigger from you to switch from just having revenue streams from wealth building to insurance and the things that you were doing into, you know what, now I want to take what I've done and I want to teach others to be successful and follow the model that I've created?
Couple of reasons. Number one is I couldn't find any really high quality specific training out there. Number two, most companies I know are really bad at training their staff. And what I find absolutely fascinating, there's no way in the world they'd have a lawyer in their firm if he wasn't qualified. There's no way in the world they'd have an engineer, an architect if they're not qualified. But they'll happily recruit people that aren't professionally qualified in sales. And to me, that's just nuts. It's just insane. One of the most important roles in a business is revenue generation. Why have you not got people that are experts and professionally qualified to do it? And often you'd find is, we do training in-house. And it's like, with the greatest respect in the world, how are you going to train in-house? Genuinely, how are you going to train in-house when you don't have a system, when you don't know how to even recruit people properly? And most sales companies get that completely wrong as well. There needs to be a formula worked out. And I've been really successful as a salesperson. I've been really successful building large sales teams. And so I was like, hold on a minute, I can do this. Now, my natural instinct is to stand up in front of an audience of people and do that. But I know that I can teach people for 3 days, they can run through walls for a week, and then they go back to their habits and behaviors from before. So training repetition is really important in training. So for me, it was a case of developing something where I could repeatedly train people over and over and over until it's just like driving a car. You can drive the car without thinking you're driving a car, and people need to be proficient, professional at sales without having to think about it. And that includes asking questions as much as it does closing. It includes prospecting just as it does asking questions.
So why do you think companies don't systematize their sales team? And I think, Spencer, that starts from the very beginning. When you talk, one of the things I do in my coaching with business owners across the country, and even in Geneva, Switzerland, I've got an attorney who's a client, is the onboarding process is normally not done very well. Why do you think that the lack of systems is actually in place in businesses right now?
Because the owners of the business don't know what they're doing. That's why most small businesses end up failing. That's why most SME businesses end up failing, because people set businesses up and they don't know what they're doing and they don't know how to do it. And so that's the reality of the situation. And so when you coach a company, you have to start with the CEO, because the CEO typically will be talking to you because he has a problem with either his management or his sales force, but he doesn't identify the problem as being his problem. He identifies it as being, oh, the managers are bad. And I'm like, well, who employed the managers? Oh, well, I did. Okay, fine. So what else is bad? The salespeople are bad. Who employed the salespeople? The managers. Okay, but you employed the managers. So who's the problem? And this is the way I deal with people, because I find there's a lot of pussyfooting around and a lot of like wishy-washy talk. And I just say to people, look, I'm known to be a bit of a straight talker. I say it like it is. Do you want me to level with you today, or shall I fluff it up around the edges? And then you give them permission. Okay, level with me, Spence. Okay, great. And then when I assess that business, I mean, salespeople not using the CRM system properly and getting away with it. And, that happens a lot of the time. The salespeople sitting there waiting for leads to be provided to them when, at the end of the day, if a lead is 1% interested in your product and service, you need to bring the other 99%. If they're 30% interested in your service, you need to bring the other 70%. The lead is only as weak as you are. And so for me, it's a case of teaching people the skills that they need and really making sure there's a structure in place. With everything that I do, there's a process, a step-by-step process, okay? And it's 27 years of doing this. So I've kind of fine-tuned it enough where it works in pretty much almost every business.
Talk to me real quick, Spencer. Obviously, COVID's been not just an issue we've dealt with here in the United States, but it's been an issue that you guys are dealing with in Dubai and obviously in England where you're from. What would you say to business owners and entrepreneurs today as we're kind of coming out of this time of COVID? What would be your advice to entrepreneurs and business owners today as we prepare for the upswing?
Well, it doesn't matter what size your business is, whether you're General Motors or whether you're Johnny with a corner shop. The only way you're going to get your ass out of this mess is to sell your way out of it. General Motors have to sell cars. The Marriott Group has to sell hotel rooms. The British Airways has to sell airline seats. Okay, Facebook has to sell advertising. The only way out of this is to be able to sell your way out of it. And so if you're in business and you are hoping to make sales that you don't have an efficient process, then you're probably going to struggle, because look, at the end of the day, thriving right now might not be the aim of the game. Surviving might be the aim of the game. And the way a business survives is by having cash flow. Doesn't need to make a profit. As long as there's money coming through the doors, you can keep the lights on. So right now, for me, it's about focusing on making sure cash flow comes in, making sure you're making sales. Now, there's all kinds of stuff you can do to limit your costs and your expenditure. You can negotiate with your landlord and blah, 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 blah. But the simple fact is, if you keep money coming through the door, you've got a fighting chance. Or, okay, if you're General Motors, you're going to go and have to be nationalized or at least take a big loan from the government. So when I look at all small businesses or any other type of business, it's like we're going to have to sell our way out of it. I couldn't think of a skill that is more critically required right now than being able to sell. I don't care what industry you're in. I don't care who you are. Okay, that to me is absolutely vital right now for business. That's the first thing. The second thing to understand is that the coronavirus, everyone has different opinions on it. There's conspiracy theories here, there, and everywhere. We're probably all going to be back to work from the middle of July. The whole world is probably from the middle of July going to be fully opened up. And so and that's not too dissimilar to the SARS impact. So SARS was the December, in the areas it affected, it was December to July. And so it looks like it's going to be pretty similar. There's going to be problems if you're a real estate developer and you're competing against other real estate developers to sell your property. Then actually, you've got to make sure that your sales team are better than the next one. You've also got to identify where the money is, because money didn't disappear; it just went to other places. So I'll give an example of this. So when it comes to my parents are retired. They live in a country called Cyprus. They retired there 10 years ago. They've got a couple of $1 million in their retirement fund. It's been invested in the markets. They've been very cautious. They've been making a 4 or 5% yield on their money. That's been fine for them to live comfortably. And then March came and we took all the money out of the markets and went into cash. Right, so they've gone into cash. Now what do? Because they still need income. So they've got the money, but they need the income, and they're looking to place that money right now. Well, my parents are one of many millions of retired people out there that are sitting on a lump sum of money that they need an income from. So just in Cyprus, where my parents live, there's 250,000 retired British people. Let's say half of them have already got a property portfolio and they're renting that property out and making a rental income. Fine. What about the other half? That's still 125,000 people. So again, it's about being smart and understanding where is the money right now? Where's it gone? And then how am I going to attract those people? Now, are you going to attract my mum who's 75 and my dad who's 75? Are you going to attract them by cold calling them? Hell no. And if anybody thinks that cold calling works in today's day and age, is smoking crack for sure. Okay. It's the most ridiculous. I mean, and I hear Grant going about it. Bollocks. Okay. It's nonsense. You don't need to cold call. And I had dinner with him when he was here and I'm like, that's nonsense, mate. All right. His attitude is, oh, you got to make cold calls. No, you haven't. Okay, you haven't got to make cold calls to anyone, because if you do your job properly, you should focus on pull selling, not push selling. That's where people come to you. They respect you. They think that you know your subject. Okay, they think that you're the guy that's got their attention, and they're going to ask you for some advice or opinion or knowledge. Also, you use social media to infiltrate communication. So my mum's in the yoga and wine group in her local community. All right. My dad's in the golf society in his local community. Get in that group, start talking to the people in that group, build a relationship up with them over a number of weeks, and then start asking people if you can bring some value to them. But don't go in there, okay, and start dropping your products and your blooming funnel straight into a group you've only been into for a few minutes. So there are ways, but you have to identify where the money is, and then you have to target that money. Whether you're selling cars, houses, there's always opportunity. You just have to work out where it is. You know, we see China's going to come out the other side faster than everywhere else. Should we be marketing our services to China more than we are? Okay, maybe that's what you have to do in some industries. But learn the skills, dedicate yourself to the craft, be literally a craftsman of sales. Don't be brash, don't be cocky, don't be obnoxious, okay? Understand where problems exist and go out there and try and find solutions. Now, there are some industries, if you're in sales, that you have to change industry. There are going to be some industries where it isn't going to work anymore, you know, and so you've got to be honest about that. Don't just dig your heels in. You know, that's like an employer keeping employees in their company through this furloughing scheme. Okay, hoping we'll come out the other side okay. No, you've got to get rid of some of those employees. That's just how it has to be. So if you're selling stuff that nobody wants to buy, then maybe if you're a professional salesperson, you'll think about selling stuff that people do want to buy. And then essentially you become a solution-based salesperson. You find the need and you satisfy the need.
Yeah, one of the things I've got written in my 10X journal is, what problem am I going to solve today? It's literally every day I write it down. What problem can I solve today? Because when we meet problems, that's when we make sales. That's when we get revenue. I mean, that's how that works. Talk to me. I know we've talked. I loved your idea about identify where the money is. And I love also the concept that I've been hearing from several people, you, Grant, other people that I'm connected with, in that there's really more money. The amount of money on the planet didn't go down. It didn't disappear. It actually increased when we did $2.3 trillion in the United States, and I'm sure other governments have done similar things, there's actually more money now than there was 6 months ago. How do you think a shift in the mindset, Spencer, for people just literally looking at it from that perspective or through that lens changes maybe even your level of passion for sales?
Okay, let's be really honest. Okay, there's a lot of people in sales that really shouldn't be in sales. They shouldn't be in it. It's an industry that they either fell into, they got bad grades, or they heard they could make fast bucks. All right. And those people probably, well, 9 times out of 10, they fail anyway. I mean, employ 100 people off the street my buddy built a business empire on taking people from the job center, no recruitment companies, just because he said, I've got as good a chance of getting people from the job center that are good, okay, that I've got of getting it from any recruitment company on the planet. But a lot of people shouldn't be in sales. That's the first thing. And I think, the real estate industry here in Dubai, I think has something like 9,000 real estate brokers in Dubai alone. If you took 80% of them out of the industry tomorrow, it wouldn't affect the marketplace.
Right.
Because there's lots of people playing it. A lot of people don't want to be great salespeople. And that's because, when you'll know this, when you've been in sales and you're a professional and you're passionate about it, you'll understand the R word, rejection. And you'll understand the impact on the R word of lots of people. And so when I learned to sell, I used to have to knock on 100 doors every morning and make 100 cold calls every afternoon. And my boss said to me on the first day of the job, go and find me 99 people to say no. And I was a kid. I'm like, what? He's like, just do it. And so I got on the phone and everyone was saying, no. Well, they were swearing at me basically, but no, not interested, that kind of stuff. And I got to the end of the day and I had my 99 no's and I went to see him. I didn't get it, but I'm like, there's the 99 no's. And he gave me a high five. He said, epic, brilliant job. He said, now I want you to do it again tomorrow. He said, and I want you to understand that you can't have a yes until you get 99 no's. You have to earn a yes. And the way that you get a yes is by getting 99 no's. So what then happened is every phone call that I made, every bit of rejection I got bounced off me because I knew I needed that rejection to get a yes. And so I was conditioned, excellent training, I was conditioned and taught very young that you have to find rejection. And most people in sales, they cower, they curl up in their shell the moment someone said no to me. Oh, it's like, they said no, big deal, move on. But people, they get terrified of the phone. When I was younger, the phone was attached to the desk and they get terrified of picking up the phone and dialing the phone. It's like, it's not going to bite you. The worst thing that happens is someone's going to say no. I know, but it just really hurts me. What do you mean it hurts you? Well, not everybody goes in the shop and buys everything off every shelf in the supermarket, do they? They walk past some stuff and go, no. Yes. So that exists. You got to get it. And so I think it's really important to understand it.
So search for rejection. Most people try to avoid it. And you're saying run straight in and attack. Like, where's the rejection? Let me go find it. It's almost like the story you've heard about how you've got 2 little boys and there's a pile of horse poop in a manure in the barn. And you've got one kid that don't want to touch it and one kid's throwing it everywhere, digging in the pile. And he goes, hey, with all this manure, there's got to be a pony in here somewhere. I mean, literally it's that same kind of thing.
Exactly. And you know what? You have to be obsessive about it, because what happens is the 99 no's and the 1 yes becomes 98 no's and 2 yeses. And 98 no's and 2 yeses is a 1 in 50 ratio from a 1 in 100 ratio. And 97 and 96 no's and 4 yeses is a 1 in 25 hit rate. Well, you've only got to get 10 yeses out of 100, okay, and you're at a 1 in 10 rate. Well, guess what? Okay, you're still earning the yeses, but you're earning the yeses from the no's that you're getting. And I think it comes down to being obsessive about your industry, obsessive about, okay, finding every nook, cranny, corner, every stone you need to turn up so that you can find a solution that enables you to be really effective at selling what it is that you sell. I know there'll be people watching this right now going, well, it doesn't apply to me, that bloody English bloke, okay? And you know what, for those ones out there like that, I really feel sorry for you, because you might just want to open your ears and embrace that there's some stuff you could learn. I had to. There's no reason why you shouldn't either.
Right. One of my core values for myself and for my company, the companies that I own, is being teachable. and I umpire college baseball. So I'm a college baseball umpire. I worked a game last year with my good buddy Jay, who is a minor league. He worked in the big leagues, AAA and big leagues, and he's a minor league evaluator for all the minor leagues from Major League Baseball. We worked a college game in Atlanta last year, and he would come down in between innings and say, "Ken, you need to do this. You need to do this." And he about the third inning, he came down. He goes, "Hey, are you okay with me telling you what I'm telling you?" I said, "Jay, if you told me to spin on my head on home plate between the third and fourth inning, and that would make me a better umpire, I would do exactly what you told me to do." And he laughed and turned around and walked away. And we went and had pizza and a beer after. And he goes, "Man, I've never been with somebody who said, whatever you tell me to do, that's what I'm going to do." Spencer, why do you think people hear what you're saying, but then it almost reflects and bounces off of them, like either that doesn't apply to me, or that maybe that's not for me? What would you say the reason is?
Again, different people have different styles. I respect and appreciate that. One of the guys that taught me when I was young was a very introverted, quiet guy. He wasn't loud like me or extroverted, as you would imagine. The things that get in the way of people's success are, do you really want to be successful? Okay. And how many times in the last 24 hours did you say, "Yeah, but"? Okay, that's one thing. The other thing is your ego overinflated? You know, I got fired from a business that I built in 2012, and in that following 6 months, I almost committed suicide, and it was because I had an overinflated ego. I'd become almost destructive because of the success that I had, and it taught me a very, very, very valuable lesson. And it was a very dark time in my life, but it doesn't take away from the fact that I really, really believe if you want to be successful in business, whatever entrepreneurial journey you're on, you have to find money. And the way you find money is either raising finance or selling products and service. Well, you go ahead and raise finance and tell me you don't need to be a great salesman. I was in San Diego at a pitch fest. I remember this clearly 24 months ago. And I was at that pitch fest as a judge in a pitch competition for people that are looking to raise cash. And I kid you not, okay, the best guy there had a very average idea, but he was the guy that was going to get the money. Okay. And there were some people that had some brilliant ideas, but they just couldn't present it. They couldn't pitch it. And so guess what? Me and the other judges just looked at each other and were like, okay, move on. But the guy, and I'll tell you his name, his company's name was Coco Jack. He invented the device to open coconuts, and he was epic. He had me laughing as soon as he walked onto the stage. He told us a story. He told us about some pain. He told us the hero journey. And in 5 minutes, we were like, that's the kind of guy I'd invest in. That's the kind of guy I'd give my money to. So whether you're raising finance, whether you're selling products or services, you're still selling. Okay, if you want to get your team to make decisions, or you want to get your team to do the things you want them to do, you've got to sell them ideas, you've got to sell them concepts. And the most important thing that we all forget, number one, what college in the United States can you go to and do a degree in sales? There ain't one. Okay. My daughter is at university at the moment. When she leaves university, she's going to apply for jobs, and she's going to have to go to job interviews, and she's going to have to sell herself. And so she needs to be a great salesperson to be able to secure the job that she wants. So it's such a critical part of all of our lives. It really is. I mean, for goodness sake, I don't know how old you are, but okay, no, I'm 50 years old, and I used to have to sell all those years ago. When I met a girl in a bar, I had to sell myself, you know.
So here's the important question, Spencer. How long would it take you to sell yourself today to that girl in the bar?
It's an interesting question. I
think it wouldn't take 3 hours.
Hold on a minute. She'd be 19 and I'd be 50?
No. I mean, if things were the same, if you went back then and knew what you knew about sales today, how quick would that, or how many glasses of wine would it take?
I'd have gone straight up to her. Literally straight up to her, because I wouldn't have had any issues around being rejected by a girl. It would be, for me, you know what? Okay, some people are going to say no. Right. And so you might as well get the nose out of the way. So I would have probably gone up to her, and if she hadn't given me the time of day, I'd have walked on to the next one until I found somebody that at least wanted to have a drink with me and give me their phone number.
Yes. The most important question of the day is, who's your football club? You're from London.
Who's my soccer club, you call it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, actually, because I quite enjoy American football as well. But in the UK, I support a team called Manchester United.
That's my team, man.
So I had two choices. When I was at kindergarten, there were two boys. One was for West Ham United. One was for Manchester United. The bigger one was Manchester United. And he said, "You're going to support Manchester United." And I went, "Okay."
I didn't know if you were a Chelsea fan or an Arsenal fan, being from London.
Right. You're not allowed to swear on your show. Don't swear on your show.
No, I have been a Manchester United fan since World Cup, like in 03, 04, when Rooney was still young, and Giggsy and Scholes and Sir Alex and the whole. I love the history of the game. I love everybody goes, it's too slow, it's too boring. But for me, it's the history of the game and the fans and everything that is about the EPL. I absolutely love it. It's one of my favorite sports. You weren't counting on that today, I can promise you that.
No, I wasn't counting on that at all. Absolutely.
Hey, one more question, Spencer, before we hop off today. You talked about and I've heard this from so many people. We just did a virtual summit the other day with Anthony Trucks. I had Coach Michael Bird on, Tim Story, and one of the guys also, or a couple of the guys, Carlos Reyes, who's a big real estate home flipper here in America, immigrant, owns 20 businesses worth tens of millions of dollars now. Carlos has become a really good friend of mine. But the theme that I hear from a lot of guys in these interviews is, I had to overcome my ego. And you said it just a minute ago. Like, what was obviously getting fired was the wow. But what would you say is probably the biggest lesson you learned about you going through that difficult season?
I think I realized that I wasn't a very nice person. And I hadn't seen that before, because you don't look at your own shit and it doesn't stink. So I think I hadn't realized the person I'd become. And it was kind of like, I was earning outrageous sums of money, like ridiculous. And so there was all this money, and then there was all this success, and I had, hundreds and hundreds of people, Spencer's great. And so that just feeds the ego. It feeds your, your attitude. And so when I fell off a cliff and it all came crumbling down around me, I realized that money was irrelevant. I realized that there's a lot of people out there that aren't actually your friends, that pretend to be your friends of convenience or acquaintances. But there are some people that love you, and you should listen to them. And so I did, and that included my parents, and that included, people that were close to me, and it's enabled me to have really wonderful relationships with some of those people ever since. But I can't even identify with that person before. Am I passionate? Yeah. Am I in your face about it? Yeah, because I really care. I want people to be successful. I don't want people to fail, and they're making schoolboy errors that they just don't need to make. And so it really drives me nuts. And I want people to win, because they can. Being great at sales is just like a skill. It's like, learn the skill, apply the skill, practice, learn it, apply it, practice, and you'll get good at it. Like anything, if you really want to be good at it. So I think that even though I'm kind of aggressive and passionate about what I do, I don't value things that I used to value. I value different things. I value this, talking to you. Okay, this is wonderful for me to sit and chat to you and learn from you and brainstorm and chew the fat and laugh and joke as well. This is valuable, and I won't forget this, because I'll make sure that I reach out to you afterwards, and I'll get you on my podcast, and we'll sit and we'll spend some more time learning about each other. And I just think those things are important. And yeah,
the one thing when you had Grant over, I guess maybe December-ish, January-ish, whenever you had
he was I think it was actually October or November, but anyway. Yeah,
okay, so it was right after boot camp, and I was down in Miami in October. The one thing that really struck me about you and watching you and listening to your podcast and the things was your authenticity and just how genuine you were. And when you said that just a minute ago about the ego, it clicked. Like I said, this is why. How with your coaching and your sales training on Make It Happen, how do you take that lesson and teach the people on sales? But that's a different filter. I teach my real estate team, the guys that work for me all the time. Listen, if you will look at clients through the lens, there's two different lenses. If you look at them through the lens of adding value and building a relationship versus transactional, you'll make more money doing real estate than you know what to do with, as long as you do that. But there's such a pull to get my bills paid. I want more. I want this. I want that. So how in that, with your authenticity and what you've went through, how does that translate into how you teach sales today differently than you would have done it pre-2012?
Okay, so I think I've always been a solution-based salesperson. So I've never thought of that or that part of it any different. There are people out there that want to learn. There are people out there that don't want to learn at first. And those typically are the ones that have an ego or something that's blocking them, fear maybe. And you have to let people with egos learn. You have to let them learn in their own space, in their own time. You can't tell someone with a big ego anything. There's nothing you can do about that. They are. You couldn't tell me I was invincible. Okay, you couldn't tell me anything. No matter who it was. I even had Tony Robbins coach me for a year back 10 years ago, and I promise you, okay, there was stuff that even he couldn't tell me. So, and I think he's fabulous. So I think that some people with egos you can't, and there'll be people listening right now that are like, oh, listen, I picked one thing from this conversation, and this is great for me. And there'll be people going, yeah. And those people, yeah. They are the people that will get in their own way. They will stumble and fall. And when they do stumble and fall, that's when they'll come back to you and they'll be humble and they'll say, please, can you help me? But I think it's like your kids. If you give your kids your opinion, they don't want it, do they? But when they ask for your opinion, then they're all ears.
Right. Hey, Spencer, thank you for your time today. I love your genuineness, your authenticity, your humility. It's refreshing. It's refreshing when you get to connect with people who are doing things on the level that you're doing them, but yet have that true sense of authenticity. And I don't know if you got to watch any of my interview with Grant yesterday. We've had a lot of one-on-one interaction, and that's the one thing with him I wanted people to see was the behind the curtain look for him. And it's just refreshing when you get guys like you who have done what you've done, who are really moving at a level that most people can't, but don't come across that way, and are transparent in, hey, I've done it at a super high level and I've crashed and burned and it sucks, and learn from my mistakes so you don't have to experience the same thing that I experienced.
It was. Do you know what Dave? Do you know Dave Metzler?
Oh yeah, Dave was on a panel with me last night. He's actually going to be on my virtual summit next month.
Okay. When we were talking the other day, it made me cry because our story is very similar. And so, yeah, that whole thing that happened to him and the impact it had, I really, sometimes things move you. That stuff really moves me because I've lived it, and I wouldn't want anyone to go there ever. But I think it was the making of me.
You realize real quick the things that you strive for, and there's nothing wrong with. I tell people all the time, listen, I walked into a Waffle House, which I know you don't know what Waffle House is.
I do.
Do you? It's a Waffle House. I walked into Waffle House in Atlanta after I played basketball with several of my buddies one night back in August. I walked in, one waitress got me some eggs and some things, and a guy brought in 3 kids. It's all about 11:30 at night, midnight. It's late. And she walked in, these kids walked in, sat down. I walked up, I said, is that your husband? And are these your 3 kids? And she goes, no, my husband passed away a month ago. And this is all he left me. And I had about $250 in my pocket. And I'd already tipped her good. I took the 20s out and I just counted them out and I put them on the counter and I slid them across the counter. And I said, listen, I pastored for about 12 out of the last 25 years. And so I said, listen, I just want you to know, man, God knows he hasn't forgot about you and he loves your kids. And I slid that money across the table, and dude, she bawled. She goes, can I hug you? I said, if you let me pray for you, you can. And she walked around the table, and this is what I tell people all the time. Listen, it's okay to have money, It's not okay for money to have you. It's okay because I couldn't do what I did for that lady and that family. And it wasn't a ton, but it was a moment for her that she'll never forget. And that's what, and again, it goes back to what you talked about, Dave. It goes back to your transparency and your authenticity. You've learned a great lesson. And now you're able to say, hey, listen, look at what the mistakes I've made. I had a mentor tell me 20 years ago, Ken, I'm in your life to help you avoid the potholes and the landmines that almost took me out. So Spencer, man, thank you for your time again, man. I love connecting, super refreshed. You get around guys sometimes, man, and it's just refreshing. It replenishes your heart and your soul. And dude, I just want to say thanks a ton for spending time with us and actually getting this rescheduled. And man, best to you. And we'll definitely reach out. I'd love to have you. Our June virtual summit's full, but I'd love to have you on in July. I know it may be late in Dubai. We may have to work something out where we change some times or something like that so we can have you on, but it would be fantastic, my friend.
I'd be honored. Thank you so much for your time. Lovely to meet you.
Glory, Man United, my friend.
And the Reds go marching on.
Yes, they do, my friend. Spencer, thank you, my friend. Enjoy your day, buddy.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.